Hello and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Report. Yeah, Mike enjoyed that. It's always funny to watch. Obviously, the audience can't see, but I can see the guest reactions down on my little bar on the console as the intro gets played. Hope you enjoyed that. Aaron will be pleased that he got a grin out of you, that's for sure. Our first live Scouting Report for two reasons. Firstly, Mike was kind enough to agree to join us live, and we're playing on Friday, so good to get this out. But also because it's easier for Aaron, and he will be editing this on the train to the FCAs tomorrow, which we're really grateful to everybody who voted, who took the time to vote for us in that. And if you want to see more updates to that, live updates, there'll be debauchery aplenty on all of the socials, I'm sure, as Aaron gets more and more free with his sharing over the course of the evening. There'll be some giggles there for sure. Mike, thank you for joining us to talk about Argyle Watford. Do you want to let everyone know who you are, where they can find you and your stuff?
Yeah, well, first of all, if at the FCAs they're doing awards for best intro, you've got it wrapped up. Surely no one else needs to turn up. Absolutely fantastic. Rock and roll scouting report. It's a new genre, isn't it? We've had yacht rock. Now we've got sort of scouting report rock. Unbelievable stuff. But yeah, thanks ever so much for having me on, and good luck to you guys tomorrow at Tottenham.
Thank you.
My name is Mike from the Rookery End Podcast. This is our 15th season. I know you wouldn't believe it to look at me. I know I look very young, and I'd had hair when we started doing it, all the usual jokes. But yeah, from the Rookery End is the name of the podcast. At Watford Podcast on all the socials. And I'm Rookery Mike on socials as well. But yeah, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to having a chat about Friday. Should be a fun game, I reckon.
Yeah, it should. Both. I think you are second and we are bottom of the XG conceded, the XG against table. So if nothing else, it should be good for entertainment. Although your home form is pretty decent, if I'm right. So that could be more chances for you against us than the other way around. So pretty good season so far in the playoff spots. Putting the goals away, although only to the tune of the sort of about what's expected according to the XG stats. So maybe a little bit of room for improvement if you're going to peak. But everything seems to be going really well for Tom Cleverley. He's shut a lot of people up, it seems. Have the performances or the results been compared to expectations at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the start of the season's been miles better than any of us expected. We were looking at the other end of the table. We thought it was going to be a relegation battle. Still might be, of course. There's a long way to go. And this is Watford we're talking about. I expect the unexpected when it comes to the Hornets. But yeah, we're outperforming everyone's expectations. I think that's largely down to Tom Cleverley. I think it was a bit of a gamble giving him the job. He came in at the tail end of last year on a caretaker basis after Valerian Ismail left, got some key results that took us out of any potential relegation battle, and then was rewarded with the top job over the summer. It's probably on paper the thinnest squad we've had under the Pozzos, and we've had an incredible time under them. It's been up and down, but we had 5 years in the Premier. We had the FA Cup final, of course, but I think at this stage this is probably the thinnest squad we've had in terms of quality throughout on paper. But they're playing as a team, which we haven't really seen over the last couple of years. You could put that down to let's get it out of the way earlier, the turnover of managers. We all know what that's been like at Watford. It's everyone's got. If you've got a joke about new managers at Watford, I'd love to hear it. And if you've got one I've never heard before, I'll give you a £5 WH Smith voucher or something like that. But I think what Tom is getting, almost like Sean Dyche did when he was at Burnley, and he gets the best out of absolutely everyone and is really knitting them together. So outperforming our expectations. That said, the home form's been tremendous, as you alluded to. Away form, diabolical, which is good news for you and your fellow Pilgrims. I mean, we won on the opening day against Millwall, and we won 6-2 in a bit of an eye-catching result at Sheffield Wednesday the other week. But apart from that, our away form has been it's just been dreadful. Literal chalk and cheese. So we're waiting with bated breath to see which Watford team turns up at Home Park on Friday night. I think it's probably worth mentioning we've had I think it's 10 players away on international duty, so that is a disrupted build-up as well. So plenty of challenges facing Watford going into this Friday night. Obviously, you have a day less to prepare as well, with it being a Sky game on that Friday. So I think Watford fans will remember last year at Plymouth, which was a fun 3-3. Goals flying in all over the place, some absolute worldies from both sides, if I remember, in the rain. So I think it's probably one Watford fans are looking forward to with that in mind. But there's always trepidation with away games at the moment because that form has just been so bad.
Dr. Argyle will see you now. We'll put you right. Don't you worry. It's funny. It's interesting you said about Cleverley getting everyone pulling together. You sold at Spria, who I remember in the 0-0 at your place was very lively. But to me, sort of flattered to deceive a lot last season. I don't know if that's fair or not. Obviously, a young player and learning his craft. He went for big money, and you brought in a couple of very decent loans, it seems, from Italian football. Obviously, the Pozzos know how to fish about there. Deli Bashiro from Lazio, and who's it from Udinese? These the Bio is
from? So we sold Bio to Udinese and then loaned him straight back.
That's right.
As is our want. But we've got Festia Basile, the right wing back, who you might have seen in action for Ireland against England at Wembley on Sunday. So they have dipped into the market to a degree. Jasper Spria is a big. I think he'll go on to great things. I think the move probably came a little bit too early for him. I don't think he was able to get that big move that he probably would have been looking for. But he's at Girona, which is obviously part of the City group, so he's in a good place there to potentially get the big move. But yeah, Festia Basile, decent player on the right hand side. Loaning back Facundo Bayo he's a real curate's egg. I mean, most games, you or me look like we could do a better job up front than Facundo Bayo. He has really struggled, but he scored 4 against Sheffield Wednesday in that game I mentioned away. He scored for the Ivory Coast yesterday, and we all know that strikers are they feed off confidence. So he's obviously got his mojo going, and it'd be fascinating to see if he can keep that going, because the jury is still well and truly out on him at Watford amongst Watford supporters. And I think really that's where Watford are lacking, is in the final third. We haven't got players who can finish. Facundo Bayo and Daniel Jefferson, who's on loan from Bournemouth, are the only real number 9s that we've got in the building. Jefferson hasn't made any sort of impact at all, and Bayo is very hit or miss. So I think that's the area where we struggle. There's one guy who's worth looking out for. He was made permanent, I think, last in the January window, so sort of a new signing is the midfielder Georgie Chakvetadze.
So yeah,
and he looks like he has got a very, very high ceiling in terms of his career. He's one to really look out for. He's jinky run, low centre of gravity. Looks like he's got the ball on a string. I think he struggles a little bit with his end product sometimes, but he's one probably worth keeping your eyes out for on Friday.
Yeah, I was going to mention him because, like I say, a lot of what Cleverley's done is with players who already there. Obviously, he did come in later in the season, but he seems like he's almost taken a step further again. And players like Luzo have come back in. I feel like maybe not setting the world alight per se, but certainly getting more out of these sort of players than who let's face it, last season looked like Championship squad players, but he's getting more out of them than was. Ishmael was and seemingly some other managers were. So it feels like you say, like he's made more than the sum of the parts, maybe, and that's always dangerous. We know what that can do down here at Plymouth. Obviously, we have one of the smaller budget or sort of middling budget in League One. Won the league under Stephen Schumacher because he created that sort of spirit and brought that into the Championship too. We're hoping that we can sort of galvanise that again under Wayne Rooney, but at the moment it's very up and down. We had a bad patch, we had a good patch, we've had another bad patch. We're hoping that this international break for us has been a bit of a put right. We haven't had as many away as you have, so let's hope that can work to our advantage. Wesley Hoot went in the window as well, who, I mean, you might well tell me his powers are waning or he was on too big a wedge, but I always admired his ability to waft the ball left and right, and very cultured centre back. And I don't know whether it's his absence that's causing the problem or not, but like I said in the intro, you've conceded a lot of chances, seemingly, whether that's a lot of pot shots being taken or whether that's good chances being offered up. What's the deal there? Is it a bit hairy at the back at Watford?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. You're right, actually, to point out Wesley Hurt as a big loss. I think he probably got a little bit derided. He had that terrible time at Southampton, didn't he? They don't speak highly of him at all. But that left foot of his, the crossfield balls that he was picking around were absolutely unbelievable. But you've hit the nail on the head. He had to go because of his wages. He came in on big money, Premier League money, really, with a view to us getting back up. It didn't happen, so he had to go. And yeah, I think he has been missed. Tom he sticks to his guns really with his setup, which is 3 centre backs and then 2 wing backs. And there was actually a fans forum last night in which he said, he does like to go for it. He'd rather win games than draw them, because obviously they're more valuable. And he was talking about why there has that stark contrast between the home and the away form. And he said perhaps he's been a little bit guilty of being a bit gung ho away from home. And yeah, I think hairy is a really, really good description of what happens at the back for Watford. They do manage to get themselves into a bit of a pickle sometimes. They've got whichever 3 centre backs play, they're perfectly serviceable, but they're very championshipy centre backs, so they can find themselves sort of treading on each other's toes a little bit, being pulled out of position. Like any defender at this level, they're playing at Watford for a reason. So it can get a little bit hectic and a little bit Haysom Jason back there, and we do give up the opposition chances. Clean sheets are incredibly rare in any game involving Watford, and they've got. I do like the shape. I like it because it gives us attacking threat, and to be perfectly honest, it's nice to see Watford with a shape, because all too often we chop and change the manager, and they're living in fear of getting the sack, so they're changing it around to try and get results over anything. Whereas Tom has been very, very clear about trying to get an identity and a style of play and sticking to that, even though it hasn't been working away from home. And I think that's something that we've liked to see as supporters. When your team goes out on the pitch, you like to see square pegs in square holes, knowing that the team what's expected of them. So I think the fact that it has been a little bit chaotic at the back for us has probably been a price worth paying for just getting the shape right and getting a bit of identity back and a bit of belief and being able to enjoy watching your football team, which is ultimately what it's all about, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, we had under Ian Foster very organised and I don't want to say static. It wasn't static. The players, ran around a lot, but players were told just, this is your place, this is your role, and it did. He has got the best away record of the last sort of 3 or 4 managers, really. But it was boring. You had to win games, or the fans didn't enjoy it. So, like you say, to see an identity, and especially an identity that suits the players, that fits, is always. You always know the manager knows what he's doing that way. I think, even if he's, like you say, you're going to normally have a weakness somewhere in the team, aren't you? At this level, you're not going to be sort of 8,
plenty
9,
of those. Don't worry about
that. It's interesting you say about clean sheets too. Until we won against Pompey at home, we didn't have one in the league at all. And we could easily have conceded against Pompey. They would probably think they were hard done by to lose that game. We were awful for large parts of it for the first sort of 60 odd minutes. So yeah, it could be a very entertaining game. It could well be another 3-3. Let's hope if it is, the goals are as good as they were last time. What do you think of this game? Do you think that there might be a change in approach? That you said Cleverley's admitted at the fans forum that maybe he's being gung ho. I know Rooney, ironically, very much the same, as stuck to his guns away from home, and fans have been calling it ever increasing volume for him to do something different, and he has finally sort of tweaked things away from home. Whether that will stay or not, we don't know, because it was against Leeds and it kind of felt a bit like a throwing of the game almost. We had 0 shots, not shots on target. We had 0 shots against Leeds, so I don't know if that was a throw to then sort of back up the Pompey game, rest people, and just. If it was, I think that's a dangerous tactic. That's a different story. Do you think he might have used this international break to try and tweak something, or maybe because of the lack of time with players, it's not the time to do it? You expect the same back 3 and go gung ho kamikaze attacking football.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We're not the classic Dutch team or anything like that, playing free flowing football all the time. But I think the wing backs do free us up, and I think we spoke about the lack of attacking prowess that we've got. I think you do need that extra sort of impetus. Yeah. So I suspect he will keep it the same. And we're not really getting blown away from home. There's been 2 or 3 games, Norwich away, Preston away, Luton away, unfortunately, where we've really had our backsides handed to us. But most of the other games have been pretty turgid, really. We haven't been able to generate anything. We haven't been torn apart that often. I think it's unlikely he's going to change it. I think he knows the way he plays. He likes the way he plays. It's a really good point about the disrupted build-up and how that is going to impact. So it could go 2 ways. It could be that he hasn't had enough time to try and consider something else, or he might change it because he's without. Maybe he might decide that some of the players that have been away aren't fit. Playing Georgie was playing on Tuesday night and has now got to get back and play on Friday night, for example. So I think all things being
equal, my hopes up. Don't get my hopes up.
Yeah, I think you'll see him on the pitch, hopefully. But yeah, I think it's unlikely he will change too much. I just think that he will focus on. I'm telling them to look at Sheffield Wednesday, look at Millwall, where they did get at the opposition. They scored goals. It can be done, and we're relatively tight against the back. They nearly blew it against Millwall, 2 against Sheffield Wednesday. So it's unlikely he's going to change it. It's unlikely he's going to change it. I think the personnel is up for debate. And to go back to your earlier point about why it's so chaotic at the back, I mentioned Festia Basele as right wing back. He might be suspended. I was trying to look it up before we came on air, but the FA website wasn't playing ball. There's a potential he might be suspended, and then the other left wing back could be Larousse, who is great going forward, but is average at best defensively. So they're the kind of sort of gambles and the sort of bargaining you're having to do. Good going forward, but not so great defensively. Slightly better defenders, not so good going forward. And then we have the problem of not being great going forward with our attackers as well. So he's having to mend and make do in sort of every area of the pitch, really. I just think he's more likely to stick with it. I think you're going to see 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs bombing on, and then the lone striker probably with Georgie playing in behind.
Yeah, to be honest, if I was him, I would do the same. Although the aberration against Sheffield Wednesday on the first day and playing with 9 men against QPR sort of do skew sort of our statistics a little bit. We do give up chances, and it will be the opportunity. He'll probably say to them, go out. This is the chance to finally get an away win to get the monkey off our back again. And Plymouth give up chances. Let's go and tonk them. So I would expect to see similar, unless it's it was a predetermined decision from back at the start of the international break. Then
would there be an expectation amongst? I mean, you presumably are looking at Watford and their terrible away form and the sort of squad that isn't perhaps as full of stars as it has been in previous years. Presumably, you guys are looking at it as a must win, really. Not a must win, but a game that you sort of identified as one that is a potential. And I just wonder whether that might help us a little bit if the expectation is high amongst the home park crowd on Friday to get at Watford and to get amongst us early. Whether that might
our away form is so poor that all our home games carry a lot of weight, unfortunately. That's been the same over several different managers, and there's all kinds of suggestions as to why it might be. It might be that we just don't have the infrastructure to sort of get places and recover and train, etc. But it's not always been as awful as it is now. I mean, there have been periods in our history where, because of our geographical position, you sort of think that, with the bottom end of the league, you got to think long coach journeys, etc. will affect your away form. We've had patches of bad away form. It's been sort of part of our ID really for a long time, but it's really bad at the minute. So I wouldn't say there's an expectation. I mean, you guys are flying high. We've had a really bad run of form. Yes, we've sort of picked up a few points that we didn't deserve to pick up. Sort of snatching a draw here and a win against Portsmouth, which if maybe we didn't deserve, I certainly think, for example, the Portsmouth game, you would not have argued a draw was a fair result. And on the balance of play, if you're talking about just the weight, the field tilt, as it were, Pompey were in our half for a lot of the games. So last season, a lot of people played us. It wouldn't be that, you wouldn't have said this because we came to Watford and it was kind of back to the wall and we tried to nick you on the break a few times. But a lot of teams we played last year would beat us and say, you play some brilliant football, you're the best team we've played, or the best team that's come and played here, you'll stay up no problem. And that went on as that was a running joke for a long time. So I'll quite happily take getting spawny points here and there, but at some point the performances have to catch up. We've had a few good performances. Away point at West Brom was a good performance. Backs to the wall against QPR. Win at home against Luton. Win at home against Sunderland. Although we've had to pick up a few wins with, like, I think 4 after the 90th minute goals in the last sort of 6 home games. So do we expect, to get to your question, do we expect to beat Watford? I don't think anyone expects us to beat Watford. I do think it's a game we would like to get something from. I certainly don't think we want to lose to Watford at home, because we need to be picking up points in all of our home games and preferably winning them, although the biggest issue will be the away form, because that's got to turn a little bit. We can't win every single home game. That's just not plausible. Yes, you've got bad away form. But when you talk about sort of the quality of your squad, etc., and the fact that Cleverley's wringing more out of it than perhaps he ought to be, our squad is also one of the weakest in the Championship. You know, our second string played your second string in the Cup, and you comfortably held us at arm's length and slapped us around. So I think that demonstrates, although we've got some quality scattered throughout the squad, you know, we still are in effect sort of a League One club budget-wise, and some levels beyond the first team also, and even in the first team in places squad wise. So I don't think anybody's is under any illusions that this would be an easy game or one we should win, but it's definitely one that I think fans will be thinking we could win, given the state your run of form away from home, the fact that it's just after the international break, and we had a bit of a similar turnaround. You know, the last 2 international breaks have been great and then awful for us. You know, it was great. It sort of gave us a chance to implement a new system. We were flying for 3 or 4 games. Then there's the international break. People had obviously watched those games, worked out how to stop our press or to play through our press, worked out how to shut down Adam Randall in the midfield. And then after that international break, we've really struggled. So the question is there going to be another tweak? Are we playing the same thing, and will we have benefited with, you know, say your guys being tired, coming back, etc., etc.? So there are so many, you know, we're both shaky at the back. We're both sort of not necessarily creating or taking chances. In our case, creating; in your case, maybe taking. So it could be. It's going to be one of those games that you could throw darts at the wall and pick a score. There's so many intangibles in this one that could go either way. I'd be much more confident picking a result if this was sort of 2 or 3 games into the new run, as it were. But I don't think anyone's expecting us to sort of to beat you. I think if we got a decent home draw, or even just a really good performance and an unlucky loss, we'd take that to see. Like I say, the points of picking up points with bad performances has been great, but I think we'd almost be happy to see a loss with a really good performance that we didn't ought to have lose. You know, and say, well, look, at least the team's found some form, than almost to scrape a draw or scrape a win and that we didn't deserve, because we're like, this isn't going to go on forever. So we're kind of in a bit of a weird position with that. It's been very sort of volatile, our form, both at home and away, really. So yeah, we don't really know what we're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates down here at the minute, and we just hope that we get one we like on Friday. Got a score prediction, Mike?
It's just so hard with Watford, because I've really enjoyed watching them play. It's hard. You couldn't call them great entertainers, despite what was said. They've had to scrap their way to some tough victories against some decent sides. And the game, like I said, the games they've lost away from home have been sort of tight, fairly cagey affairs. You know, the last time out was away at Swansea, which was a 1-0 defeat that, you know, no one's buying the DVD of that. So it's really, they're due to give someone a good hiding again away from home, I think, despite having scored 6 at Sheffield Wednesday. But it just seems to be such a mental thing. I'd actually be interested in your take on this, because I think for you guys, the logistics are obviously difficult and different in terms of the distances you're travelling, and whether it's the night before, the day before, and how that impacts on training and so on and so forth. But really, I think at this level, the difference between home and away isn't massive. There's not many home grounds that are cauldrons of partisan, incredible support, and it's so noisy that you step on the pitch and it's like, oh my goodness, we can't
Yeah.
get a result here. I think there's a bit of a fabled effect of the away performance, and it's not like you're playing Boca Juniors or something, is it? I'm not talking about Plymouth. It's about when you go to any championship club. There's a few exceptions, I guess. Ellen Road when it gets going, and Sunderland, and anywhere when it's bouncing but it's not. And I just think it's more a mental thing than a tactical or a talent based thing, or more often than not.
Yeah,
But
we
so
were having this debate in the pod chat the other week. How much is psychological? How much is sort of those external factors? I don't know if sometimes it's just familiarity. From where the hoardings are or the seats are. You know exactly where you've got to put the ball to the back stick when you spin your man. That kind of stuff. Just knowing where the pitch slopes slightly, or where you play you can kick the ball 20 yards up the line and skin your man because you know how it's going to roll. Or the little intangibles like that sometimes can make a difference. Just knowing that give you a slight advantage maybe at home. But I do, I'm like you say, it's not as if it's walking out to flares and ultras, and it's not like the Super League, like the Turkey, or sort of like you're going into like the Serbian sort of ultras are smashing up your coach on the way in or something. So it's a strange phenomenon, but there's obviously something. And it's millions gets poured into the sports science and the psychology and all of that, and still it's a reality. So there must be something beyond just sort of the obvious psychological factors that you'd kind of list off as a layman. So I don't know. It's I feel like we've got a bit of a reputation for being a hard place to come, and I don't know if that's just the extra travel, and that is sort of unique, because at the very, very best you can sort of fly to Exeter and it's still an hour's drive down. So maybe that things like that can be a factor, but that's
definitely. It's always a good
us.
atmosphere. It's always a good atmosphere. I think it tends to be pretty raucous, but I don't know. I think I have faith in Tom Cleverley. I think seeing him up close last night, there's probably 100 fans there last night, and most of the questions, what it's like at these things. There was the head of first team performance and the technical director and all this sort of stuff. Most stuff ends up going towards the first team coach, and he's just so laser focused. He knows what he wants. His Man United roots, and obviously he's played for England. He's played under Sir Alex. I think he has that high expectation and high. He demands a lot, and I think this away form will be really bugging him. And I think he'll be working morning, noon, and night to try and unlock, whether it is psychological. He'll be trying to unlock that key to get us more consistent away from home. So, to go back to your original question about the prediction, I have faith in Tom, and obviously, I assume Tom and Wayne Rooney played together, didn't they?
I assume so. I was just thinking it's interesting you talking about the Sir Alex sort of and the influence of expectation at Man United, the way you're supposed to carry yourself and the responsibility of that. I think like Keane and Neville talk about that on their pods and stuff, and it's funny how much they both play a very similar style of football. You're describing the way you guys are setting up, although we're not playing three at the back. We're playing a four, and Rooney doesn't seem to like the three, but just the sort of philosophy of we're going to go and get 3 points because a win and 2 losses is better than 2 draws, or and a close one. All of those kind of things. It sounds very similar to Rooney. Obviously, he's had a bit more of a career, not necessarily as storied as he'd like. Although he's had some good patches, maybe at Derby, etc. But certainly the recent history is not as good. But a very similar kind of ethos, and just interesting how we might see 2 very similar approaches on the pitch, although in slightly different formations on Friday.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, I would take the draw. I'd shake hands and take the draw now. Hopefully see a few goals. But I've just got this sneaking suspicion that we are due to turn this away form around. And I just think if they are serious about staying in the top end of the division, and most of us probably half expect us to sort of get pulled back down into mid-table and for the season to peter out. That sounds very unoptimistic. Sounds very pessimistic. Unoptimistic, crikey! I'm Mr. Articulate over here. It does sound pessimistic, but that's kind of what we're expecting. Tom won't have that. He will not. He's having seen him last night. He is super serious. He is focused. So if the season is not going to peter out, we need to turn it around. What better time, what better place than Friday at Home Park? So hopefully it's a good game. I'm going to go for, and this is probably worth checking out the odds, 3-2 Watford.
Yeah, I can see it. My prediction, which was made, we have like a competition. We at the beginning of every calendar month we predict the next bunch. So you can make it look quite stupid if you're on a good run, and then you sort of make predictions. But I predicted a 2-2. Just that was based on sort of like, start of the month. We were in a bit maybe better form, and you were flying high, and I sort of figured you're going to come down here and score. That's for sure. Can we capitalize on your leaky defense? And maybe that's a bit of maybe I would have said 3-2 Watford, to be honest, if I was going with my head, but I sort of went with my heart and plumped for us to pick up the point. You've always got to you got to hope, haven't you? There's no point.
Look, you're in with a chance. I'm being it's very rare that I predict a Watford win, but you're absolutely in with a chance. Watford are not good away from home. They find ways to get themselves in a pickle defensively. Sometimes they can get overrun in midfield. A couple of you mentioned Imran Loser. He's come in from the cold a little bit, but he can be. If he doesn't fancy it, he doesn't fancy it again. Another one, it may as well be me or you. In there, Musa Sissoko, I think, is back. But again, he's getting on a little bit, so doesn't have the impact. He has Edo Kayembe, who pops up with a fair few goals from midfield. Again, can be anonymous in midfield. So look, you guys are in with a chance. And I think one thing that Watford don't do is start well. First halves have been almost uniformly bad, and we went through a stage. I think it was 3, 4, maybe even 5 games where we conceded within 5 minutes. So I'm being rarely bullish about Watford's chances, but you guys are absolutely in with a massive shout. Fast start would be the key for Plymouth, and because it's just hard. Watford, it's hard to come back from shipping early goals, and then we've talked about the psychology. I think here we go again. We're away from home, and we're behind again. So if I were you guys, I'd go into it hopeful. That Watford have a soft underbelly. And a fast start from Plymouth could reap rewards. Just hope it's a good game.
We set it up well and truly for the worst 0-0 you've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's freezing cold.
Nailed on now. Yeah, sleet and everything. Everyone goes home poorly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would take a boring 0-0 if I'm honest. A home clean sheet and another point on the board. Maybe that would be a good start for us. Maybe you'd take it too. I don't know. Mike, really appreciate you coming on. Just tell everyone again where they can find you, so we can come and laugh at you when we've beat you, or thrown at you when you hammer us and you're gloating.
Or thank me for that 3-2 Watford win when you've just stuck a fiver on it. Yeah, so Rookery Mike on socials, including Blue Sky, of course, these days, and the podcast is from the Rookery End, and that's at Watford Podcast, and we'll be doing a wrap up of the game on probably on Friday night or Saturday morning. Unfortunately, can't make it down. My local team's actually playing. My local non-league team's playing in Truro on Saturday, so I've wanted to come down and do the Plymouth Truro double header, but logistics got in the way. Couldn't quite make it happen, unfortunately. So that will have to wait. I've done Home Park. I've got the tick, so I'll let someone else let the others go down there, cheer them on for that 3-2 win.
Yeah, Truro flying at the minute too. They might soon be heading up the leagues with any luck. Thank you, Mike. Really enjoyed the chat. Really appreciate you coming on, and all the best for the weekend.
Yeah, enjoy it, and good luck again at the awards. Fingers crossed for you guys.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, guys. Bye.